Chess is a widely popular two-player strategy game believed to have originated in India centuries ago. The objective is to checkmate your opponent by positioning your pieces so that the opposing king is under an inescapable threat of capture. While the game has straightforward rules that are easy to grasp, mastering it requires strategic thinking to outmaneuver a skilled opponent. Keep reading to discover all you need to know to start playing chess. Object of the game. The objective in chess is to checkmate your opponent's king, but most games conclude before the actual capture occurs, as the opponent becomes unable to prevent the impending checkmate. Checkmate happens when you place your opponent's king in check, meaning it is directly threatened and they cannot move the king or use another piece to block the threat. When this situation arises, you should say checkmate aloud to signal the end of the game. A chess game can also end in a draw under certain conditions. Basics of a chess set. First, we must understand the basics of a chess set. Chess is played on a board that is made up of 64 alternating black and white squares. The chess set is made up of 32 pieces, 16 for black and 16 for white. Each set consists of 1 king, 1 queen, 2 rooks, 2 bishops, 2 knights, and 8 pawns. The board. Understanding the rank and file system is crucial for navigating the chessboard and recording moves. Ranks are the horizontal rows numbered from 1 to 8, starting from the side where the white pieces are positioned. Files are the vertical columns labeled from A to H, beginning at the left side of the white player's side. To identify a specific square on the board, combine the rank with the file. For instance, the bottom left corner for the white player is designated as A1, whereas the corresponding square for the black player is H8. To practice notation, record each move made by you and your opponent, detailing the piece and its destination square. While using the rank and file system is not mandatory, it greatly simplifies setting up the board and learning the game. Position the board correctly for play. Ensure that the chessboard is oriented so that each player has a black square in the lower left corner. To begin, have both players sit directly opposite each other. Rotate the board so that each player has a black square on their left-hand side at the bottom and a white square on their right-hand side at the bottom. To help remember this setup, use the phrase "white on the right" as a guide. The pieces: king, the tallest piece with a cross on top, the most important one in the game. The king is the tallest piece on your chessboard, crowned with a cross, and it's the one you must safeguard at all costs. The king can move 1 square in any direction, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. However, you must be cautious. You cannot move your king into a square where it would be captured on the next turn. In other words, you can't deliberately place your king in check. Pawns, the short, rounded pieces worth 1 point each. Pawns may seem small, but they play a crucial role on the chessboard. They typically move just 1 square forward toward your opponent's side. However, on their first move, pawns have the option to advance 2 squares, provided no piece blocks their path. If a pawn reaches the far side of the board, it can be promoted to a queen, rook, bishop, or knight, significantly increasing its power. Rooks, the castle-like towers worth 5 points each. Rooks resemble the sturdy towers of a medieval castle and are valued at 5 points each. They have the ability to move any number of squares along a row or column, but they cannot jump over other pieces or move diagonally. After the queen, your rooks are among the most potent offensive pieces on the board. They are also highly effective for defense, especially in the early stages of the game. Knights, the horses, worth 3 points each. Knights move in an L shape, traveling 2 squares in one direction, and then 1 square perpendicularly, or vice versa. This distinctive movement allows them to leap over other pieces on the board. Valued equally with bishops, knights are versatile assets both offensively and defensively. They are particularly noteworthy because they are the only pieces, aside from pawns, that can be moved on the first turn of the game. Bishop. Bishops, the pieces with rounded tops and slits, worth 3 points each. Bishops are the slender, tall pieces adorned with a carved slit at the top. They move diagonally in straight lines across the board and cannot leap over other pieces. Similar to knights, bishops are highly versatile in both offense and defense. It's important to note that each player has one bishop restricted to moving on dark squares and another bishop limited to light squares. Queen. Queen, the tall piece with the rounded top, valued at 9 points. The queen is your most powerful piece, capable of dominating the board. It can move any number of squares in a straight line, whether horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, as long as its path isn't obstructed by other pieces. Unlike other pieces, the queen cannot jump over others. To visualize its movement, think of the queen as combining the capabilities of a bishop and a rook. The queen is unparalleled in its ability to both attack your opponent's king and defend your own, making it your most valuable asset on the board. Position. Position the rooks in the corners of the board. Place the rooks in the 4 corners of the board. Position the white rooks on squares A1 and H1, while the black rooks should be placed on squares A8 and H8. Rooks are labeled R if you're using chess notation. Position the knights beside the rooks. Place the knights next to your rooks. Position the white knights on squares B1 and G1, and the black knights on B8 and G8. Knights are unique in their ability to leap over other pieces on the board. Knights are labeled either as N in notation. Put the bishops next to your knights. If you're the white player, place your bishops on C1 and F1. Black bishops go on C8 and F8. Bishops can't move onto a square that isn't the same color as its starting square. Label bishops as B if you're using notation. Position the queens on their corresponding colors in the back rows. Place the queens on the squares that match their colors. Position the white queen on D1 and the black queen on D8. In notation, queens are represented by the letter Q. To easily remember the placement of the queens and kings, use the phrase, "The queen always gets her color." Set the kings next to the queens. Put the kings next to the queens to complete your back row. Kings are labeled as K when you're using notation. Place your pawns in the row in front of your other pieces. Put one white pawn in each square of rank 2 and set the black pawns in the squares of rank 7. Pawns are not labeled with any letter in notation. How to play. Start the game with the white pieces. In chess, the player with the white pieces always begins the game. Select any piece that is able to move and place it in its new position. After the white player completes their move, the turn passes to the player with the black pieces. If you are playing multiple games consecutively, alternate who plays with the white pieces to ensure fairness. The player with the white pieces has a slight advantage due to having the first move. To decide who starts, you can flip a coin, play rock, paper, scissors, or let players choose who goes first. Move your pieces to develop and strategize. In chess, each player makes one move per turn. On your turn, you may move any piece as long as the move is legal. You can put pressure on your opponent by moving your pieces into positions where they threaten capture on the next turn. Alternatively, you can strengthen your defense by positioning your pieces to protect each other and counteract your opponent's threats. In the early stages of the game, players often start by moving pawns, followed by knights and bishops. However, you can choose your own strategy and move pieces in any order you prefer. In competitive play, there's a rule known as touch move. If you touch a piece, you must move it. While it's acceptable to touch pieces as you learn, try to visualize and plan your moves mentally as you become more proficient with the basics. Capture your opponent's pieces by moving on to their squares. Capturing in chess involves moving your piece to the same square as an opponent's piece, thereby removing that piece from the game. Aim to capture key opponent pieces like their queen, rooks, and bishops, as this will weaken their position and reduce their options. When you capture an opponent's piece, lift it off the board and set it aside. Note that pawns have a unique capturing method. They can only capture pieces that are one square diagonally in front of them, not directly in front. You cannot capture the opponent's king directly. Instead, you need to maneuver your pieces to a position where they can threaten the king, leading to a checkmate to win the game. Check and checkmate. Put your opponent's king in check to apply pressure. Move one of your pieces to a position where it threatens to capture your opponent's king on your next turn. When a king is in check, the opponent must respond on their next turn by moving their king, blocking the check, or capturing the threatening piece. Putting the opponent's king in check is a powerful tactic, as it forces them to divert from their strategy and focus on defending their king. This can lead to the king being placed in progressively more precarious positions. A king can only capture an enemy piece if doing so does not leave it in check. If your king is in check, you must make a move to address the threat, or else you will make an illegal move. Checkmate occurs if you put your opponent's king in check, meaning it is under direct threat, and they are incapable of moving the king or blocking the threat with another piece. When this happens, say checkmate out loud to declare the end of the game. Let your opponent double-check if they can make a move before declaring yourself the winner. Chess draw rule. A chess game can end in a draw under 5 specific conditions. Stalemate. The game reaches a stalemate position where the king is not in check but no other legal moves are available. Mutual agreement. Both players agree to end the game in a draw. Insufficient material. There are not enough pieces on the board to achieve checkmate. For example, one player has only a king and a bishop, while the other has only a king. Threefold repetition. A player claims a draw if the same position occurs 3 times, though not necessarily consecutively. 50-move rule. The game is drawn if no capture or pawn move has occurred in the last 50 moves. The en passant rule. The term en passant, which means in passing in French, refers to a special pawn capture that occurs when a pawn moves 2 squares forward from its starting position and lands beside an opponent's pawn. In this case, you have the option to capture the opponent's pawn as if it had only moved 1 square forward. To do this, move your pawn into the space directly behind the opponent's pawn. You can only execute an en passant capture immediately after your opponent's pawn makes the 2-square move. If you do not perform the capture on your next turn, the opportunity is lost. And passant is one of the more complex rules in chess. If you are a beginner or playing casually, you might choose to skip this rule until you become more comfortable with the basics. Pawn promotion. When a pawn advances to the back row on your opponent's side of the board, it is promoted to any piece of your choice, except for the king. Typically, promoting to a queen is the most advantageous move, as the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. This allows you to potentially have multiple queens in play simultaneously. The promotion of a pawn is not affected by whether your original queen has been captured or is still on the board. While promoting to a queen is common, there are occasions when players choose to underpromote to a rook, bishop, or knight to avoid a stalemate or to take advantage of the knight's unique move. However, such cases are relatively rare. The castling maneuver. Castling is a special move that you can make once per game to enhance your king's safety and activate your rook. To perform castling, move your king 2 squares horizontally toward one of your rooks. Then, in the same move, shift the rook to the square immediately on the opposite side of the king. Ensure that the squares between the king and rook are completely clear. You cannot castle if your king was in check on the previous move or if it would be in check after castling. Additionally, castling is not allowed if the squares the king passes through are under attack by enemy pieces. Castling is also prohibited if either the king or the rook has already moved during the game. Every game of chess is a test of intellect. To master the game, the first step is to thoroughly understand the rules and the various ways to win. We hope this guide provides a clear and comprehensive overview of the basics of chess for beginners. Enjoy the game and play with passion, young chess enthusiasts.